Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, are you sick of robocalls? We'll learn from a leading national expert on how to turn those robocalls into cash. That's next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team. And the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, if I had to guess, I think I get about a couple dozen robocalls every single day. And every time I get one, I keep thinking to myself, man, if there was only a way to get back at these people. Well, my next guest has a way to do just that. Doc Compton, consumer advocate. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I can't believe you've turned this into a business. And so I want to hear your journey. How did this start?
Well, like most people, I was getting 10 to 15 robocalls a day, 20, 25 on some days. And I knew from my time working at a law firm several years ago that there was recourse for consumers to be able to go after these telemarketers who called you with the auto dialers without consent. And I just, on a whim one day, decided to take one of the letters I had been using while I was working at the law firm, remove the attorney letterhead, and send it out as a consumer just to see if these guys would negotiate. And to my amazement and delight, they did. And from there, I just started kind of doing it more, practicing, honing the letter. And before I knew it, it kind of took off. And people started talking about it in social media and so on. And it blew up.
Wow. I'm so impressed with you, and you've been all over the nation, North America, I think into Great Britain when it comes to teaching people how to do this. We found one clip from about a year ago. Let's go ahead and roll that.
Constant robocalls can be a pest for many of us, but what about a way to get rid of the pest and possibly add to your pocket?
There were 1.5 billion robocalls into Virginia in 2019.
Attorney General Mark Herring has been keeping tabs on robocalls in the Commonwealth.
We are using the tools we have available to try to come after you if you're doing it.
Calling with the Vehicle Service Department.
Robocalling is illegal under state and federal law.
Possibly extending or reinstating your car's warranty.
Unfortunately, robocalls have become a daily annoyance. I'm the Attorney General, even I get them.
Constant interruptions on a daily basis.
Joe Popiel tells me at one point he was getting 20 to 30 robocalls a week.
Very aggravated.
And was looking to dial up a solution.
I'm not wanting to change my number because knowing that would just start over again.
He says that solution came in December 2019 when he came across this kit, Turning Robocalls into Cash, by consumer advocate Doc Compton.
We all pretty much agree on one thing, and that is we all hate robocalls.
Compton has a background in consumer credit and finance and wanted to share information about turning the tables on robocallers.
The vast majority of people, they know that the robocalls are into money. They know that something should be done about it, but they don't know exactly what can be done about it. You can actually take matters into your own hands and go after these illegal robocallers and do the one thing that has proven an effective means to make them stop, and that is hit them in the pocketbook.
He says this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme and requires time and effort for results. The kit costs $47, and the process involves taking the call and getting information out of the caller. You then research information and find out who's behind the call and put the information into a template demand letter to send off to the robocaller.
They'll typically try to settle with you rather than go to court. But the federal statute says $500 per violation, and that number is tripled if you can demonstrate that the violation was made willfully. For example, if I'm on the do not call list and they don't have my express prior written consent to call, that's a willful violation. So instead of $500 per violation, it would become $1,500 per violation.
Individuals do have the right to bring a case against a company who is making illegal robocalls.
Herring says in Virginia, each robocall can carry up to a $5,000 civil penalty for willful violation. As for Popiel,
I just wanted the calls to stop.
he started getting results quickly.
In my phone, I had a record of all of those calls from one particular robocaller dating back to September of 2019. And there was quite a few calls that were all identical.
Next came a payout of $5,000 and not as many calls.
The best $47 I've ever spent.
And the numbers are still adding up.
You can really make about a full-time job out of it.
Compton says his kit has helped those impacted by COVID-19.
We've actually had a couple of people who've been able to take the money that they've made and start businesses in the wake of losing their job because of the pandemic.
Overall, his goal is to not let companies off the hook.
We're building an army of people that are coming after you. And eventually, if you don't get right, we're going to push you out of business.
Zach Dahlheimer, News 3.
Well, that's got to feel good to help so many people.
It really does. That's the best part of it, is hearing the stories day in and day out from people that it's really had an impact on their number of calls, yes, but just on their lives in general.
Sure, and there's a page on your website. It's called The Kit, but it's off of robocalls.cash, and that's where you can get the kit. Doc, who is the right candidate for this?
Pretty much anybody at this point, unfortunately. Yeah. That's kind of the sad part. If you're getting the calls about auto warranty, student loan forgiveness, tax relief, roofers, solar panels, those calls are actionable. And even though the call centers that may be the people you're talking to are overseas, the people that hire those call centers are here in the United States, and that's ultimately who you end up going after.
When you turn the tables on these guys, they must be shocked.
A little bit. They're not expecting people to know, not as much now, I think, because more people know about what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And I think they expected a little more than they used to. And litigation in this particular area of law has increased pretty drastically over the last 3 or 4 years. So they're more aware than they used to be. But even still, there's a lot of them who are simply not expecting to receive the kinds of demand letters and so on that they're getting.
Now, have you caused them to change their script? Are they being more careful about the information that they're saying on the phone?
Yes, and I wish I could tell you, Jeff, that they were actually changing the way that they were conducting themselves from a business perspective, but the reality is, no, they're not. They're trying to get a little bit sneakier. They try to hide themselves a little bit more, but at the end of the day, they can almost always be found.
Sure. And I think in a way, the money's nice, but even just knowing that you're turning the tables and getting a little bit of revenge.
Well, for so many years, these people operated in just kind of anonymity, and they continued to do what they did illegally and with relative impunity. Nobody was going after them. Nobody was holding them accountable. And that's one of the best parts, is when they realize that they've been gotten and they're mad about it. You know, hey, look, all you have to do is stop making the illegal calls and you don't have to worry about these demands or these lawsuits.
Sure, and you have a long history in credit repair and all that other stuff, but this has really kind of taken over your business.
It really has. When this thing really got thrust into the mass populace, in 2019, it literally was day to day. I was getting another call, another email. Can you come to our show? Can you give us a telephone interview? Whatever. And I realized that it's just such a huge problem. More people need it now than ever. And the problem isn't going away. It's, in fact, continuing to grow. We had over 51 billion robocalls in the United States last year.
What's the largest check that you're aware of that someone got from using your kit?
Individual settlements, I'd say probably the largest one that I know of is in excess of $400,000.
No kidding.
Yes. Obviously, the larger the amount, the more rare they are. But generally speaking, people are making anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 per settlement. And it just depends on the number of violations and how many times they've called or even texted, because texts are covered as well.
You could make this a full-time job. You could try and get your name on every list possible.
Well, you could, but we actually encourage people not to do that. It's very important. The primary objective of this entire movement is to reduce the calls that people are getting and allow people to reclaim their phones. The courts, in fact, have said that you can't go out and bait the callers and try to get them to call you, because then you can't really complain that it's an inconvenience.
Right.
So we tell people just to be cautious when you're filling out that form online. Make sure you read the fine print. Make sure that you're not giving someone the opportunity to call you or text you day in and day out.
All right, we're almost out of time, so final thoughts. What would you like to leave people with?
I think the biggest thing is this is something the government's had 31 years or so to solve this problem since the law was originally passed. And it hasn't really helped. And all the patches and all the fixes that they've worked on haven't done it. It's time that people stand up for themselves, take matters into their own hands, and use some pretty simple strategies to find these guys and hold them accountable.
Outstanding. You've been a great guest. We're going to end with the website, which is robocalls.cash, thegreat.compton. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.